Good morning, everyone. This is Laura Roche with PMG University. We're going to get started here in just a moment. I still have one or two more people logging on, but I do want to be very respectful of your time. So we'll get started here very quickly. All right. Before we get going, let's do some housekeeping items. So first of all, everybody is on mute. So if you have any questions, we ask that you use that questions box. I will be watching it throughout the presentation or the live demo so that I can stop and answer any questions you have. Please feel free to stop and ask me. I know that when I'm learning, I do better when I can ask it in the moment. So that doesn't bother me at all. The next item is that there are two handouts, which I noticed I didn't add here. So I'm going to drop them in really quickly to our the control panel, and you'll be able to download them. They also will be sent to you as support material after. So if you don't have access to them right now or aren't able to bring them down or pull them down right now, don't worry about it. You'll get a copy of it soon. So I just downloaded the accessing AllRegs online, and the next I'm going to do the exploring AllRegs, which are the two handouts that we're going to cover today. So those are now there in your control panel. So there are two different versions of AllRegs. There is the subscription version and the free version. PRMG provides a free subscription to all PRMG staff members to AllRegs. So what I'm going to start with doing is telling you, if you're a PRMG employee, how you can access AllRegs. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by going over the free versions, because the free versions are a limited version of the subscription version, but everything you can do in the free version, you can do in the subscription version. And then we'll move over to the subscription version and talk a little bit about the differences and some of the things you can do with the subscription version. So let's start with the accessing AllRegs online document. This is just a little document we put together to help our staff sign up for a subscription. You simply go to the AllRegs site, enter the information, and request a registration online, and that'll be taken care of. This is actually a new version of AllRegs. They are phasing out their old version. The old version had a different way to get connected. And so this is new to us as well. So if you have any problems getting access, feel free to reach out to our support team at support@prmg.net. They're set up as admins on the account and can work with you to get you access to the system. The next document that we have as a download is this Exploring AllRegs document. And this is just a quick document that provides some direct links for you. So it has the link to the AllRegs homepage, as well as the direct link to their login page. It also provides links to the free versions of the websites provided by FHA, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac. So I want to start looking at those. And then we'll go in and we'll kind of explore through the guidelines through the AllRegs system. So FHA, the link right here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that link, and it's going to load up for me the new version of AllRegs. And this is actually like I said, it's the new version of AllRegs. The agencies in this last month have converted over to this new system. So this is what it looks like. You'll see that it's going to be very similar to what the subscription version looks like. However, the free versions are just for the version that's provided by the agency. In this case, it's going to be FHA. When we see Fannie Mae, it's going to be Fannie Mae. So FHA came out with the free version of AllRegs when they came out with the 4000.1. So you're only going to find the 4000.1 information here for FHA. So to get into their seller guide, you're going to either click on the link here or click on the arrow next to it, and it's going to expand your link. You can see I have the 4000.1 as well as mortgagee letters and housing notices. I'm not going to go into that here because we're going to look at that in that subscription version, but I just wanted you to see a little bit of how it's laid out. I just want to make sure, yep, looks like you're seeing okay. So that's the free version. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go backwards and go back to my document again, and that was the free version of FHA. Next is Fannie Mae. So Fannie Mae is loading, it loads it in a different window, which is fine. But again, I'm still at the same thing here, where I have this free Fannie Mae selling guide. You can see it actually has a very similar look and feel to what FHA does, but instead of being the 4000.1, obviously it's the Fannie Mae Selling Guide. So again, I can click on the hyperlink over here, the drop down, and it loads up the different selling guides. In this case, I have all of the different years selling guide. Since I'm originating or underwriting to 2019, I'm going to want to obviously use the most recent selling guide. So that would be the 2019 selling guide. And again, we're going to go through this through the presentation. I just, again, wanted you to have a little look at it. The last but not least for the free versions is going to be Freddie Mac. And Freddie Mac doesn't have as good of a direct link as Fannie Mae and FHA does. So instead, we simply link to their single family business guides and form page. And here, this first link up at the top of the page is AllRegs. And if you launch that, it's going to go ahead and launch their AllRegs page, which is, again, looks very similar to what we just saw with FHA and Fannie Mae, but instead it's Freddie Mac. When Freddie Mac came out with their free version of AllRegs, they did that a couple years ago now, I think it was, anyways, time flies, when they converted their chapters, their selling guide. They did a revamp of their selling guide, and in it, they provided a copy of AllRegs user guide. I don't know if this has been updated to the new format of it, but it covers a lot of the same information. And you're going to find that if you are familiar with using the old version of AllRegs, the new version is really not that much different. The base document is the same and the idea of it's the same. It's just really the look and feel that's been updated and some additional functionality in the search has been added, or the way you search has been changed. But really it's very similar to the old version. All right, so that kind of talks about our free versions of AllRegs. Again, VA and USDA don't provide free versions. You have to have the subscription version. And again, PRMG staff members are more than welcome to get that subscription that we pay for and provide for all of our staff members so you can access it directly. This document, Exploring AllRegs, provides some information about just a little quick screenshot of the different sections on the selling guide, as well as some links to training and support. All right, so now let's get started on AllRegs. What I highly suggest doing is making AllRegs a favorite on your bookmark bar. So I have my bookmark bar here. I have AllRegs as one of my favorites. I simply click on AllRegs and in I go to AllRegs. So I've already set up my account and it remembers me. So it remembers my username and password. All I have to do is press login and it's going to take me right in to the AllRegs page. So previously, AllRegs would work as a pop-up. It would come up kind of outside of it. Now instead, it sits as a tab on your window. So it's not a problem at all. You just want to be aware of it. So previously, when I would use AllRegs, I would come down to my bottom of my Chrome and I would look for my AllRegs subscription. Now instead, I just need to look for it up here at the top. And if you want to add a new tab to get to something else, you can just simply, anyways, I'm in Chrome. You would do it a little bit differently on different browsers. You just click plus and you could add new browsers. So here we are on the subscription version of AllRegs. You're going to find it has a very similar look and feel to the free versions, but instead of starting just on FHA's page or Fannie Mae's page, it starts on this home page that lists some different agency updates that it shows you here. Over on the right, you have things that you've recently viewed. So you can see that I was looking today at ineligible projects for Fannie Mae. I was looking at refinances from FHA and maximum mortgage amounts yesterday. You can create favorites and you can add public notes. I haven't done that for me, but it's absolutely a new feature that's there and it's great. So if you have something that you use a lot, you can absolutely make it a favorite and have some quick access to it. So up here at the top, I'm going to go to the menu bar here at the top. You're going to have your home. You're going to have your agency guides, your investor guides, our library, federal compliance, state compliance, and mortgage mentor. We're going to be focusing on the agency guides today. Investor library is going to cover our MI guidelines. So if you come in here, you can see over here on the left, it's mortgage insurers. You click on the hyperlink, it shows us the different mortgage insurers that are available. And we could go in and look at their guidelines. Our library would be if we were using AllRegs for our guidelines, which we're not, so there's nothing in there. And then the next thing I did want to cover very quickly is federal and state compliance. So as a subscription for AllRegs, one of the things PRMG currently offers is access to federal and state compliance guidelines. looking in it and searching in it is very similar to what we're going to do for the seller guide. So I'm not going to cover that at all, but I did want to let you know that it's here. So if there is something you wanted to look up, you wanted to know in Florida what the statute is for condos and getting a recert of value, you could go in on the projects. You could go in and search state compliance and find the laws that are associated to that and find that Florida says every 36 months, the insurance company or the project has to have a evaluation to determine their insurance amount. So something like that. But again, I just want to let you know that it's there. But today our focus is going to be on searching the agency guides. So I want to take us back over here next to the home to the agency guides tab. And over here on the left-hand side, it loads the agency guides for us. So you can see that over here on the left-hand side. Fannie Mae is obviously for your conventional DU approvals. Freddie Mac is for your conventional LP approvals. We use FHA, which is for our FHA products. Then we go down and we use VA, that's for our VA products. And then rural housing, that's for our USDA products. So those are the primary ones you're going to use and the ones we're going to focus on today. There's obviously other information, other agencies that are on here that we don't currently sell to, as well as other information like ARM indices or your HUD limited denial of participation list. So there's other information, but again, our primary focus is going to be on the agency selling guides. So let's go ahead and start with Fannie Mae. So to get into the selling guide, you have to work through your table of contents and kind of go down to layers to get to it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on Fannie Mae selling guide, and you're going to see that it expanded these lot items below me. The next thing is I want to be obviously in 2019 because that's when I'm originating. So I'm going to click 2019 selling guide, and you're going to see it expanded it again over here on the left-hand side. I have my Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D, and Part E. When you're originating a loan, your primary area that you're going to want to work in is Part B, origination through closing. There's definitely other information in the other sections that could apply, but for underwriting and originating a loan, Part B, origination through closing, is going to be your primary area. So I'm going to click again on Part B to kind of dig down. And now you can see it expanded my list here. So I'm going to scroll my arrow down on the left-hand side, and I'm going to look at my different sections. So I have Subpart B1, the loan application package. B2 is eligibility. B3 is underwriting borrowers. And B4 is underwriting property. Those are your primary areas. Obviously, insurance is important. You would need section subpart B7 for insurance. Different programs like Home Ready may have a different section under unique eligibility and underwriting considerations. But if you're really thinking about how you qualify a borrower, that's going to be in Part B2, 3, and 4. So what I like to do when I do these demos is pick a topic, and I like to do student loans and use that kind of as our theme throughout the training. So if we wanted to find something on student loans, we would, if we kind of knew how the selling guide was laid out, we'd say, okay, so that's about like underwriting borrowers, right? It's a borrower's liability. So I'm going to click on underwriting borrowers, subpart 3 here, B3. And here's something that was really important I wanted you to notice. So I had clicked on it here, but it moved my subpart 3 way up here to the top. So you want to be careful as you're working in it. That's one of the new things with this new system. It doesn't just open it and like I have to pay attention. So I noticed that it moves up there so that I now have my list of my chapters here from the top. So just be aware of that of that functionality. Okay, so we're talking student loans. Student loans is a liability the borrower pays. So I'm going to click on liability assessment. And again, you can see it took me up here to liability assessment. If I scrolled up here, I would still have my other chapters. It just moved my liability assessment to the top. So student loans is a monthly debt obligation that borrower pays. So I'm going to click on monthly debt obligation. And now, finally, I'm in the selling guide, right? I had to work my way down to the section. And over here on the right-hand side is the actual Fannie Mae selling guide. So this over here on the right-hand side is exactly like the old version of AllRegs. The font, everything looks exactly the same to me. It's just the way, the look and feel of getting to it. And really, it's not even that much different because before you had to click on the hyperlinks and you had to expand your options to get down to the selling guide. Okay, so now over here on the right-hand side, you have some different choices. You have the way Fannie Mae lays it out is they list the different topics here. And for instance, I can see student loans. it's a blue hyperlink, so I can click on the hyperlink and it's going to take me down to the student loan section. It actually hid the student loan section a little bit, so I had to move it down, but so then I could read about the student loan section. Another way that I can do it, if I do Control Home, I'm using that on my keyboard, it's going to take me back up to the top of the document. I could press Control F, and that's going to bring up my find functionality in the program in the browser that I'm working at. And for instance, I could type student loan. Now what it does for me is it highlights in yellow everywhere it's finding what I've typed. So you can see all of these yellows are highlighted and orange is the actual hit that I'm on. So I could move through the document by clicking the up or down arrows, and it would take me throughout the document moving to the section, and I can see in the orange the sections where the section applies. So sorry. So let's see what else. That they used to have a section. I'm newer to using this, so I want to, I have to kind of play with it a little bit. So you can see that it's made it full screen by clicking my arrow in and my arrows out over here. I got rid of the table of contents. I don't use that often. I like to be in control of the table of contents, and you can make your right hand and left hand screen bigger and smaller by clicking on that middle line and dragging it left and right. So, and you can go, that's as far as it'll let me go, but so I can make it bigger. So I prefer to do that because again, I like to know where I'm at. It also has up here your alpha index and your topic search, but these are different search functionalities. It's not specifically for the guidelines that we were in. So I'm going to hit us back 3 times using my back button to take us back out here, but because it's using the browser, it takes me back to my main guidelines. So I have to dig back down into my 2019 selling guide, origination through closing, underwriting our borrowers, back to liability assessment, monthly debt obligations, and then again back to student loans. All right, so that just kind of shows us how we get from section to section. The next piece I want to show you is I want to go back to my table of contents, and I can do that by clicking the home button up here under my agency guides, and you can see it closed it up and it took me back here. I could also click the agency guides, or I could click out of that and then back over to agency guides and it would take me back there. So that was looking at Fannie Mae. So next what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about searching. And searching happens up here with this all content and this search bar. It also can happen with the alphabetic index and the topic search. I don't use that very often, and I didn't use it very often in the old version as well, but I want to quickly touch on what those sections mean, and then we'll go to the actual searching. So alphabetic index is basically an index, like the index in a book, right, where all the different words are indexed. So you, instead of being for just for offering the alphabetic index for all the seller guides, they only offer it for the 4, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, and VA, and you have to tell them which agency you're interested in looking at. So let's go ahead and keep with Fannie Mae. We'll click on Fannie Mae, and now I could, if I knew my topic, I could simply click on this S right here, and it's going to take me down to S. I could search in the index if I want, or I could scroll down and continue to find it, right? Look through it if I was in A's. So obviously we want student loans. So I'm going to click on the S. It's browsing me through my S's. And now I can come down and look for student loans. Again, I could have put it in the search function, but I want to do it this way. So here's student loans. And over here on the right-hand side, it's only finding 2 results for student loans. And this is interesting. This is the new version, and it's doing something different than it used to, because previously it would come back for me and it would find all the same hits that it would find in a search. So I'm not sure what's going on here. What I will do is I'm going to make a note, and I will reach out to Ellie Mae and let them know that that's not working as I had seen it work before, which would be to return all of the same hits for that topic in the findings. However, the idea of it is that it returns all Fannie Mae loans. The other thing that it used to do, and I'm not sure here, but I want to mention what it used to do because it was something that I guess kind of I can see. This is just returning the 2019 selling guide. Previously, the top topic search in the alphabetic index would return all selling guides. So you would want to be careful and make sure you're only using the most recent selling guide. And that's going to really be the case anytime you're searching or doing something, right? You want to always make sure you're in the most recent information. So let's look quickly at topic search. And again, it's not something that I use that often, but I go Fannie Mae selling guide. In this case, instead of being by words, it's by like subject or topic. So student loans is probably part of credit underwriting because borrowing is credit underwriting. And I'm again going to click on these links and it's going to load it for me. I'm going to click on, let's see, a student loan is a liability. So I click on liabilities and then I see the different drop downs here. So let's see, student loans is one of my choices. So I'm going to click on student loans. And again, it returns me just those 2 hits for student loans. So previously it would return a lot more hits. And so I'm going to do a standard search now and I'll show you what findings it normally would have returned, but it would return it for every year, not just 2019. So I am just making a note about it for alpha and topic searching. Okay, so the good news is that that's not really a section that you're going to use that often. What you're going to use and what I find is the most powerful thing about AllRegs is their search functionality. And that's this section up here. So right here on the left, it's searching all content. If I select all content, that means that it is searching every single agency guide, every federal compliance, every state compliance, right? All the content in AllRegs. Well, I definitely don't want that ever. I don't even want, if I'm looking for student loans and I'm curious what Fannie versus Freddie does, I don't even want to see them together. I want to look at Fannie Mae and then I want to look at Freddie Mac because it's how I like to search, because I want to know exactly what I'm looking at. I don't want to be pulling up guidelines for both and then be looking at Fannie, but it's really Freddie, and I don't want to get confused. So I like to keep it separate. But so let's go ahead and have our topic be student loans. And I'm going to type in student loans here. You can see it starts suggesting some topics that I could pick. So I could pick student loans if I wanted. And if I want to limit my search on this feature, I do this drop down for all contents. And it's going to now let me pick where I want to go. If I want to include prior selling guides, I could hit include old content, which I don't. I only want to look at my current content. There might be times that I need to go back and look at old content, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But in general, because you're originating and underwriting now, you want to be in the current selling guide. So in this case, I want agency guides. I click agency guides over here on the right-hand side. It says, what do you want to search? I can click Fannie Mae single family. That now is going to give me all of the 2019 current Fannie Mae selling guide. If I wanted to further drill down, so for instance, I don't want to see announcements, explanation of revision history, etc. All I care about is my selling guide. I can either clear all up top or I can uncheck here, and I could just search my 2019 selling guide, which is what I do. I like to just search the selling guide that I'm looking at. I could also even further just do part B, origination through closing, if I wanted to further limit my search just to that section. I typically just search the entire selling guide. But again, if you know what you're looking for and you know where it is, that might work better for you. Once you figure out what you've wanted, where you want to search and what you want to search on, which is this top up here, you're going to press find. Before I do that, I want to talk about one more thing, which is this options section. It's going to be defaulted for you the way that you typically are going to want to have it be defaulted. You want to find synonyms, which are words that mean the same, right? So if you put in the word debt, it might find a word that's liability, right? Because it may, Fannie Mae may have written student debt as student liabilities. So you want to make sure that it finds those synonyms. You also want to hit match all words. And again, it's defaulted for you, so you shouldn't have a problem, but I do want to explain it, and here's why. I had an underwriter who I would suggest, you really should use AllRegs. It's such a great tool for you. And she would say to me, oh, I never use AllRegs because I can never find anything I'm looking for. It just gives me back all this information. So we talked a little bit about how she was searching and what she was doing. And it turned out she was doing match any word. So for instance, if she typed in the word student loans, it would find anywhere it found the word student and anywhere it found the word loans. So if you can imagine how many times the word loans shows up in the Fannie Mae selling guide, she just got overwhelmed with information, right? And so when she started using that match all words, it would only return hits where both words were found in the selection, right? I use match match exact phrase occasionally. Sometimes someone will send me a little snip of the guidelines and I want to see the context where it's in. So I know exactly what that guideline says. So I will copy word for word a section of it. I'll say match exact phrase and it'll help me narrow in on that specific section. But I only do that if I know exactly what I'm wanting to search. If I have any question about it, then I use that match all words feature. All right, so now we're ready to search. I didn't end up changing any of my options. I could have. I can close that if I want. And then I can hit search. I want to show you this little orange star up here at the top. That means that I have filtered my contents. And if you remember, it said all contents before. Now it says filtered because we have limited what it's going to search on. I can go ahead and I can press the find button and it's going to load for me. So over here on the right-hand side, it is loading what it has found for me in the Fannie Mae Selling Guide. So I can take a look at it. What I really love about it is how it returns just a little section of the guidelines, so I can read it, sort of like when you search on Google, it kind of gives you an idea, and I can get an idea of where I want to be. So if I come in here and I say, okay, I want monthly debt obligations, I can click on the black hyperlink here, and it's going to load for me my my findings. You can see here on the, it's highlighted in yellow everywhere that it says student loans. It's brought up the word student loans here, and I can click down through the document. It's moving to each hit that it found. Another thing that this does, which is kind of nice, is if you said, okay, well, this is not the section I want, you could hit next result, and it's going to take you out of this result and into the next result. And now you could read this result. I happen to not like searching that way because I like to, again, be in control of where I'm going. So I don't use that next result. But you know what? They do it so many ways because everybody likes to do stuff differently. So if you find that you want to just look through it that way, great, you can do it. I can go back out to my table. No, that one didn't work today. I can go, but I just hit back and it brought me back to my search. I can go back out and then it brings me back to where I was searching. So instead, if that monthly debt obligations wasn't where I wanted to be, I could simply click on, okay, I want to look at general information on liabilities, and I can click on general information on liabilities. So that's another thing. And then again, you can make it full screen with the little arrow over there. Over here on the right-hand side, this little bar, this is telling us where we can make notes. You can add it to favorites, you can print, or you can email it, and you can make yourself go way back up to the top. So if I was down, instead of using that control home on my keyboard, I could use those little tools. So they've added a lot of great things for you. I'm still learning about it because it's not that old, but I love it. I'm like, oh, look at a nice, cool, another little thing to be able to use just to continue to enhance it and make it better for you. Okay, so that is searching. The next thing I want to cover is a little bit about how the guidelines are laid out for the different agencies. We've talked already about Fannie Mae. So I'm actually going to go over to the agency guidelines, home into the agency guidelines. And so next I want to look at Freddie Mac. So again, I'm going to click on the arrow to the left or the hyperlink and see my selling guide. For Freddie Mac, you want to go in the single family seller servicer guide. And then from there, you're going to want to go to the single family seller servicer guide. And that's going to be where we want to find the information. We're selling them loans, right? So you're going to want to be in that selling section. And then the selling section is going to have different series, 4,000, 5,000, and 6,000. 4,000 and 5,000 are going to be your main sections. 4,000 is talking more about mortgage eligibility in terms of things that are eligible. Origination and underwriting is going to be qualifying your borrower. That's going to be where you credit underwriting, income, assets. So if I click on Series 5,000, I think it's going to take this Series 5,000 and put it to the top because I'm down far enough now. Let's see if it does it. Yep. See how it took that Series 5,000 to the top? So as I'm working in it, I'm learning about when it's going to throw it to the top because it doesn't always throw hyperlinks to the top. It's sort of when it goes down and it opens up a chapter to see the different subjects in it. But again, you just have to get used to how that works. So within here, you can see the different topics. So student liability or student loan is probably a monthly debt obligation. So let's look at our evaluation of monthly obligations. And again, it threw it back to the top. So even though my mouse was over here where I just was, I have to remember, nope, I don't want that section. I need to go back up here. Evaluation of monthly obligations. Then it expanded that one right there. And now I want my monthly debt to income ratio. And now finally over here on the right-hand side, I'm in the selling guide. And again, it's just because it's working it down because it's keeping it organized and compact for you. So I can see right up here how it's telling me what I need to do for student loans, and I can look at all that information. All right, so that is Freddie Mac. I'm going to click home to go back home here to my agency guides. We've looked at Fannie and Freddie. Let's look at FHA next. So again, I'm going to expand my FHA. So what you'll find here is if you remember in that free version of FHA, we only saw the 4000.1. Because this isn't the free version, this is the subscription version, you're going to see a lot more information. So in addition to the 4000.1, I also have access to the 4155.1 and 4155.2, which were in effect many years ago. So you want to be careful and you want to make sure that you're working in this 4000.1. So let's go ahead and open that up. Again, I'm going to continue to expand my chapters or my links to get down to where I want to be. You primarily are going to want to be using origination through post-closing endorsement. That's section 2. You know, there are some things in that doing business with FHA, but really section 2 is your main section. And then in here, it's going to be section A, Title II insured. Obviously, appraiser and property requirements apply too. I'm not saying those aren't important, but if you're talking about underwriting a borrower and underwriting property, it's primarily going to be in this section A. So I'm going to go ahead and click on section A. It's going to take it up to the top. It's open the section things below. So I want to talk a little bit now about what HUD said when they came out with the 4000.1. So one of the things they talked about was how their writing or their wording in the guidelines was very, very specific. So when they say must, that's because they meant you must do this. So the use of the word must is purposeful. They also wrote it as if you were doing a purchase transaction. So if you're underwriting a borrower and you're calculating income, income's going to be the same if you're doing a purchase or a refinance. So you would use the main guidelines in those cases. However, in general, it's designed as if it was for a purchase. So what they did was they wrote it as if it was a purchase, and then they created this chapter 8, programs and products. And inside here, they have specific things that apply to things like your 203K, refinances, which are cash out, limited rate and term, limited cash out, streamlines. You're going to find all of that in your refinance section. They have information about HUD REOs in here. So the programs and products are the extra things that supersede or kind of trump those main guidelines. So for instance, if you went into refinances over here on the left and you go down to no cash out refis and you scroll down to streamlines, it tells you that you can basically ignore when you're doing a non-credit qualifying all of these chapters because none of these chapters apply to a streamline, right? Or these sections apply to a streamline. It applies to a purchase and also a refi in a lot of cases, but you can ignore it if you're doing a streamline refi. So there are a couple sections in the main guidelines that specifically reference refis, and obviously that's talking about refis, but in general, it's written as if it's for a purchase. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about with the 4000.1, I'm going to go back up here to the 4000.1. I want to see origination through, nope, title A, sorry. A, and then I want, I'm sorry, the new version gets me every time. Doing business origination through closing, and then I want section A. Okay, here we go, back again. That does throw me a little bit, but it's really going to be just about use and getting used to it. And the more I use it, I know where I have to go. I just have to get back there. And the more I use it, the more comfortable I get with it. Okay, so the other thing that they talked about that was really important was you'll see they have chapter 4, underwriting the borrower using total mortgage scorecard, and chapter 5, manual underwriting of the borrower. And the reason they have 2 different chapters that are similar in lots of ways is because with the old 4155, they covered, okay, well, if it's a AUS, you do this, and if it's a manual, you do this, and they covered it in the same section. And they found that there was a lot of confusion about what was the right way to underwrite a borrower. And they found that people were applying manual underwriting requirements to total scorecard approvals and total scorecard approvals to manual underwriting. So they said, okay, even though you calculate income the same way for a total scorecard versus a manual underwriter, in general you do anyways, we want to list all those same requirements in both sections. So if you're using your total scorecard and you have an approval and you don't have to download or downgrade for any reason to a manual underwrite, you start at chapter 4 all the way through from beginning to end. And chapter 4 is going to direct you on underwriting that borrower. If for any reason you aren't eligible to use your total scorecard, you have to downgrade because they had a BK in the last 2 years, or they have business income that's declining over 20%, or you get an AUS refer and you can't do a total scorecard, then you start at chapter 5 and you have to meet the requirements from chapter 5 from start to finish. And you'll find a lot of the requirements are the same, but they don't want you to get confused. So that's that's another important piece that they called out when they brought out their new guidelines. All right, so I think that pretty much covered, oh, nope, that just is HUD. I forgot VA and USDA, sorry. So let's go back up to our home and look at VA next. But that pretty much covers FHA. So next is VA. So next we're going to look at the lender's handbook. And if you click on the lender's handbook, you're going to again now scroll down and you're going to find they have the different chapters. And obviously all the chapters of the lender's handbook apply, but if you want to think about actually underwriting and qualifying the borrower, that's primarily going to be in that chapter 4 credit underwriting section. And again, you noticed it took me up to the top. So even though my mouse was down here right where I was looking at it and I clicked, I'm back up here in my chapter 4. And I would say maybe 3 to 6 months ago now, they changed it where the different sections under credit underwriting used to have different sections, but they now just have this overview. And instead of having it broken out here on the left, well, let's see in this version, yeah, the very top, they have the different sections. And these then take us to sections within the document. So if I wanted to look at debts and obligations, I would click here at debts and obligations. It's going to take me down to this section in the guideline, and I can scroll down here and look for my debts and obligations. I can also do Control F, again, like we talked about before, and search for student loans. And again, here you can see student loans and repayments. It's talking about student loans and payments and what I need to do. So it brings that information in there as well. All right, so that is our VA selling guide. And, obviously there's other sections that you need to be concerned about: appraisal, property value, minimum requirements, guarantees, all of that information. But in general, borrowers are handled under credit underwriting. All right, so now I'm going to go home again. And the last but not least is Rural Housing Service. And that is your USDA product. They came out with the technical handbook in December before HUD came out with the 4000.1, and HUD came out with theirs in September of the next year. So I primarily work in this technical handbook, and that's what they suggest that you use. They have the different chapters set up. USDA is the program that I use the least to search on, so I find that I use searching in it more because I'm not as familiar with how it's laid out, whereas other guidelines where I'm always in FHA and I'm always in Fannie Mae, right? So I pretty much know how they're laid out. If I know what the topic's going to be about, I may not know right where it is in the selling guide, but I can generally know where I need to go to get to it. But I don't really know how the USDA is laid out. I can come and I can look, and lots of times I'll do that first, right? I'll take a look here and I'll say, okay, I'm looking for, it's probably either going to be credit analysis or ratio analysis for my debts because liabilities are in our ratio, our debt. And then let's take a look at the ratios and see if it talks about it. Oh, sure enough, I guessed right. And here is where it talks about different types of debts. So I would come in here and I could read through it. And again, I could do that student loans and search for student loans. And here it talks about what I have to do for student loans. But it's not as clear to me because I don't use it all the time. So I use Control F a lot more. All right, so that was navigating through the guidelines. So I want to point out again one more thing about searching up here at the top. Again, remember that little star means that it's filtered. If you want to clear out the filter, you simply come here and you hit clear all, and look at, you now can see that I changed it to all content, and I've removed the Fannie Mae restriction. If I wanted to go back and search FHA instead, I could come here and I could search my 4000.1, and you can see now it says it's filtered again with that star, and I could search whatever I wanted in the star. Again, this isn't including old content. And in general, you're not going to want to see that. But if for some reason you wanted to go back and see a previous selling guide, you can simply click includes old content, and it's going to search also on the archived information. All right, so okay, so it says, my apologies. After you click on FHA single family, what do you click on? Okay, so I'm thinking you're talking, are you talking in the search functionality, or are you talking in the table of contents? But you know what, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show you both. So if I'm wanting to search information on FHA, I'm going to do agency guides, then I'm going to do FHA single family, and then I'm going to scroll down and I want to search in that 4000.1. I could simply click on the 4000.1 and it would highlight everything below it, or I could continue to further, refine my searches, and I can uncheck it and come down and just search in origination through post-closing endorsement. Now, when I search the 4000.1, I just search the 4000.1. I don't go down and search just the origination through post-closing. I just want you to see how I can control where I want to search. But if you're searching for FHA, it's that 4000.1 FHA Single Family Housing Policy Handbook. And that's the same thing you're going to want to search or navigate down to when you're here in the agency guides. I'm going to go back home, FHA Single Family, and then I'm going to, here, I'm going to find it, moved it way to the top. I'm going to find my 4000.1 FHA Single Family Housing Policy Handbook. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to, again, continue to give me those links, and I can search down or navigate down to the section that I want to be in. All right. So that kind of covers all of the things that I like to talk about. I like to talk about how they're set up, how you search. I like to mention about the federal and state compliance. And then again, I know I mentioned it in the beginning, but I want to remind you, I want to highly suggest to you that you bookmark it. I also bookmark my my product profiles and my resource center for PRMG. So even rather, and my PRMG apps. So I always have them quickly at my fingertips. There's one other thing I want to mention with this new version. This new version works as a tab within your browser. So if I was to go to my product profiles, I could click this. It's going to take me out of what I was searching in, and it stays active longer than the old version used to. So if I want to go and look at my product profiles to compare something, I would suggest opening a new tab. Again, you can click the plus, or if you have another tab open that you want to change, you can click the plus. And then, for instance, like I said, I bookmark my product profiles. So I just have my product profiles as a favorite, and I can quickly get to them. And then I can tab from, one section to another. Here we go, one section to another. Another kind of neat trick, just because I have you on the phone and as I'm working with the new system, I'm learning some new things, is you can pull out you can pull this out. So I just grabbed that tab and I pulled the tab out to be its own browser. So now I have two different versions of Chrome open, right? So I have this version of Chrome and this version of Chrome. Windows has a really cool thing that I learned a couple years ago. If you hit your Windows button and you hit your arrow to the right or your arrow to the left, it will move this screen to this. It'll make this window be half of the size of your window. And then you can pick another window to be the other half. So I'll show you what I mean. So if I click the Windows button and arrow right, it's moving this to the right. And then it's saying, what do I want to have be on my left? So if I want my AllRegs page here to be on my left, you can now see that I can basically split screen these two screens, and I can be now navigating, for instance, to my agency fixed, or actually FHA would probably be a better suggestion. So I can be in my FHA guidelines at the same time that I'm in my, I want to be in my Title II underwriting the borrower using total scorecard credit requirements. And then I can pull this arrow way over here to the left, and I can be seeing these requirements on the left-hand side at the same time as seeing my guidelines. So if you have two screens, it's not that big of a deal because you could open one on each screen. But if you're working on a single screen on a laptop or whatever, it's kind of nice because you can split those two pieces of information. So that is what I have for you today. I want to thank you so much for attending. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to PRMG University at prmg.net. Thanks again.